One of my New Year's resolutions for 2024 was to complete a sprint triathlon this year. This idea stemmed from when I started cycling in September 2023. I have been swimming since high school. Although my swimming ability is average. However, each time I went to the swimming pool, I could swim 1,000 to 2,000 meters. I also had a running habit. Therefore, after getting into cycling, I felt it was time to combine the three sports and give it a try. So this year, I signed up for the Sprint Triathlon in Berlin. Let me briefly introduce the sport of triathlon. It consists of swimming, cycling, and running. The Olympic triathlon distance is a 1.5 kilometers swim, 40 kilometers bike, and 10 kilometers run. The sprint triathlon I entered has half those distances: an 800 m swim, 20 kilometers bike, and 5 kilometers run. When I saw the distance of the sprint triathlon, I felt it wouldn't be too much of a problem. Normally, our regular weekly cycling rides are often 40 kilometers plus. In the pool, I can comfortably swim 1.2 kilometers. And although running is my weakness, I estimated I could complete 5 kilometers by running and walking. The only unknown was whether I could do all three activities together. So starting in April this year, I focused on training, cycling, bouldering, HIIT classes, running, and swimming on a weekly scheduled basis. Then the competition day is coming. This year, the triathlon takes place on 2nd of June. My group is Sprint 1 man, with a 2:10 p.m. start time. Race check-in was from 12:10 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. If you want to participate next year, I highly recommend you arrive earlier for check-in. I reached the venue around 12:50 p.m. and the check-in line wasn't too long, maybe 10 to 15 people ahead of me. In the check-in line, officials first checked if you had the race number sticker on your bike. Then they checked if you had the run and bike race number bibs. Finally, a professional checked if your bike was regulation compliant. After those 3 steps, you could enter the transition area, find your race number slot, and set up your gear. This year had over 2,000 participants, so you can imagine how massive the transition area was. I warmed up and prepared my race gear here. One item I overlooked as a newbie was the race number belt. I naively thought they would provide safety pins to attach the bib number, but there was no such perk. Everyone used some stretchy belt to affix the paper bib. Luckily, there was a vendor selling these belts at the entrance, so I spent €10 on one as a little souvenir. Around 1:40 p.m., over 300 participants gathered near the awards stage. A staff member in a yellow shirt was on stage going over important instructions, emphasizing safety, safety, safety as the core message. Especially for the swim, he said to call for help immediately if struggling. After the briefing, everyone proceeded to the riverbank. The swim leg took place along the Spree River, circling around Inselderjugend Island, before exiting. Swimmers entered the water in waves, with green swim caps bobbing everywhere, quite a spectacular sight. At the start horn, everyone began swimming hard. I'd advise newbies not to rush into the water, otherwise you'll be treading water for 5 to 6 minutes. They stuck to the 2:10 p.m. start time precisely. Luckily, the summer water temperature was decent, and the yellow buoys became visible in the distance. I alternated between breaststroke and freestyle, hitting each buoy marker, ultimately completing the 800 m swim in 21 minutes. After being pulled onto the exit, I immediately ran to the transition area, a 200 m barefoot sprint that almost gave me calf cramps. Reaching my bike rack, my lack of experience meant I spent over 7 minutes in transition before starting the bike leg. Today's bike route was a tailwind for the first half, headwind for the second half. Still, I set a new personal best average speed of 28.7 kilometers per hour. Many of the elite athletes probably averaged over 35 kilometers per hour, zipping past me effortlessly, a humbling experience. One tip for newbies: there are aid stations near transition handing out food and hydration. Be sure to grab a banana. I took one on the first lap, but tried some packaged item on the second lap, thinking it might taste better, only to find it was a sticky gel that made a mess of my hands. I had to lick my fingers clean, so I advise just sticking to bananas. After completing the 3-lap 19 km cycle, I made it back to transition, swapped to running shoes, and began the frantic 5 km run. With temperatures around 26°C and the first half in direct sun, I got quite dehydrated. But running together with others did help push my pace, averaging around 6 minutes per kilometer versus my typical training pace of 6:15/km. That final sprint to the finish felt awesome. I definitely want to do this again next year. A few tips for first-timers. If you want family/friends to spot you, wear bright clothing. Also scout ahead of time to advise them of your swim exit location and estimated finish time, based on your practice paces. When exiting the swim, start stripping off your gear while running to transition to save time. Avoid taking the gels on the bike, the stickiness is very unpleasant on your hands. Wear a visor or cap for the run to provide shade. Those are the key insights from my experience. See you all next year.